Hello, here we go. Back to the cycle class. Today I'm going to go over what alcoholism actually is. So we can understand, there's two reasons why we won't stay sober and we'll relapse. We don't understand the problem or we don't understand the solution. So today I'm going to spend a lot of time breaking down the problem, which isn't alcohol, but it's alcoholism. And we have to qualify people. I had to be qualified to see if I was that real alcoholic addict. And if you are that person like me, you will never, ever get off this cycle and stay off, maybe for 2 weeks or a month or whatever, however long. You won't stay off without God's help. So we have to come to this realization, and not only with God's help, there's a spiritual path of action that we must continue to take. And if we let up on any of those, we'll get sick again, and we'll find ourselves drunk and high. And that's what we have to understand, like what we're up against. So I'm going to spend a lot of time today breaking down the actual problem, which is alcoholism. And we'll get into it, and we'll come right out of the big book to try to explain this so that people can understand. And then hopefully they go and explain this to other people, right? That's what we're in this for. So before I start, I'd like to read off of page 68 out of the big book. I love this portion. It's very helpful with fear and, self-conscious of maybe you're going to go tell your story, or maybe you're going to work with somebody, you're taking someone through the steps, you're unsure, you want to do a good job or this or that, or whatever situation in life. I love this portion on page 68 of the big book. It's like almost to the bottom, a little more than halfway down. It says, we never apologize for God. You see it? Right there, a little more than halfway down. So we never apologize for God. Instead, we let Him demonstrate through us what He can do. We ask Him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. At once, we commence to outgrow fear. Wow. That takes the pressure off of us, don't it? We look to God and we stop playing God ourselves. We stop trying to depend on our own self-sufficiency and whatever we're trying to live up to. And we say, God, let you demonstrate your power through my life. This is your words. This is your ways. This spiritual path is from Him. And that'll take care of the fear because we're depending on God to do it through us, right? That's the gospel. That's Galatians 2:20, by the way. So, back over here, I'm going to break down the cycle of addiction here and get into alcoholism and kind of let you know about my life. You see, in my life, before I started drinking and using, I still had this. I struggled from a spiritual malady, right? My spirit was sick. I didn't have an intimate relationship with God. I wasn't doing the things of God. I was born with a selfish nature, and I lived that selfish nature out, let me tell you. It was all about Matt. Matt was the center of the universe. I lived life according to what I thought life was about, what interested me. Oh, I like that toy. You have that toy. I want that toy. Give me that toy. Since a kid, it was all about Matt, right? And so I lived my life that way, selfish and self-centered, as the big book breaks down, that is the root of our problem. So see, I was suffering from a sick spirit, the spiritual malady, even before I was drinking and using. And I look back now and I can see it. I was so self-conscious. I cared about what everybody thought about me. And I tried to live up to this certain image that I thought was cool in my own mind, being influenced by peers and things, that the area I grew up or the time I grew up or whatever it is. And because I knew deep down I could not live up to that image. I knew it. Guess what started to develop in my life? Fear. Fear started to develop in my life because I knew deep down I wasn't this person I was portraying. I was trying to portray myself as cool as possible, right? Acting. So the fear from that developed in my life, and I lived in this state of fear and I sure didn't try to show it. I would show the opposite. I had defense mechanisms. I told my friends, now that I've been sober and walking with God, I told my friends about this fear I had as a teenager and into my 20s, and they were blown away. You? The guy that wouldn't shut up, that was boldly just off the hook? You had fear? Yes, I did. And I tried to mask it as much as I could. So as I'm living life this way, I found something that treated this malady, this internal condition that I lived with, and didn't even understand what it was. Living selfish and self-centered. I was 16 years old, and I found a 40 ounce of malt liquor. Crazy Horse is what it was called. I don't even know if it's around anymore. And then St. Ides was another malt liquor 40. This is back in the 90s when 40s were in. I drank that 40, and it treated my internal condition. It treated my sick spirit, the spiritual malady. All of a sudden, I wasn't restless, irritable, and discontented. The feelings of uselessness and self-conscious and fear went away. All of a sudden, all this confidence came in. I wasn't bored at that moment. It brought me to I was in the moment. And I said, what is this? And it really fixed me inside. See, that was my temporary solution for my internal condition that I lived with my whole life, that got worse and worse and worse the older I got. The more I was trying to live up to some certain image, the more I lived for myself, believing the lies of the world, I was sick. And this 40 ounce of beer treated this internal condition that I didn't know how to treat anywhere else, right? So it made me feel a part of, and it was fun for a lot of years, right? I found hanging out, in high school, the house parties, which eventually turned into the bar scene, the club scene, and everywhere I went, I would get drunk, get high, and that was my life. And it was, every day was a Saturday, and it was fun, and I just lived that way until I started hitting some of these consequences. Some of these consequences that I hit in my life, getting in trouble with the law, losing relationships, losing jobs, losing trust. And at the same time, the spiritual consequence with this spirituality got worse and worse and worse because of my choices and my actions. And there I was, stuck on this cycle. And then after a while, it wasn't so much fun being stuck on this cycle. I would emerge remorseful, not like before when I just told my parents what they wanted to hear so I could stay at their house still or keep the girlfriend and, I'm done, I promise. Yeah, I'm just out of control, I'm done. But I started emerging remorseful and started meaning it. I really felt like this is a problem. I need to stop. This is not cool. And I'm making firm resolutions, but I could not keep those firm resolutions because they would always turn into broken promises. And I didn't know why. I literally had no clue at this point in my life why I couldn't just stay away from alcohol and drugs. I would always sit in this period of making that firm resolution that I was meaning now in my life, but I didn't understand. I was blocked off from the necessary power to even stick to that firm resolution. So as I'm in this period of trying to stick to it, what's going on in me that I didn't understand? I'm coming apart internally. I'm restless, irritable, and discontented because I've removed what I used to treat my spirituality when I found the malt liquor and the drugs eventually. I removed that, and instead of treating this properly, I just thought I was going to be okay. But I would get sicker and sicker and sicker because my internal condition is not treated. And I didn't even know how to treat it. So here I am stuck in that state, and I didn't know what was wrong with me until somebody took the time to show me this cycle, which is found in the big book, and took time to introduce me to the big book and explain the big book to me and go over this and show me what my problem really is. My problem is not drugs and alcohol. That was my solution to my problem that worked really well for a while but stopped working so well, and the consequences in my life that came from drinking and using were becoming to be too bearable. But I didn't know what was wrong with me first or how to fix it. So I would just keep relapsing because I can't sit in the malady. I can't sit in that for too long. I go nuts in the insane thought that I know how to fix this regardless of all the consequences, and I keep going back. So someone had to break it down for me what was going on. And in the big book, the doctor's opinion on XXVIII, at the very bottom of the page, That's where this cycle came from. So I need to know the information of what my problem is, and someone had to take time showing me, and that's what I try to do with my life now. And that's what I want all of you to eventually do if you're not already. Okay? So let's see where the cycle came from. Everything I say, I want to make it and bring it back to the big book. And I do the similar thing with the Bible. If it's not in the Bible, well, what's the point of even discussing it, right? So we know that the big book came from the Bible. So when we're talking about this stuff of addiction and recovery, let's make sure that we're coming out of the big book, okay? Or we could be off. So the bottom of page XXV, I, out of the doctor's opinion, that's where this cycle came from. The last paragraph, if you see, it says men and women. See that? Okay. So men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. So what happened when I was 16 years old and I drank that 40, there's an effect that the alcohol produced that did what? Treated my internal condition. For the first time, my internal condition was treated. My spiritual malady that I had been living with, it was treated by the alcohol, and I was like, whoa, I found something here. I finally got a relief from that internal condition that was driving me nuts. Anxiety and depression and shame and uselessness because of my selfish outlook and the way I was selfishly living. So that fixed me, right? It's for the effect produced is what? It says the sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, they cannot for a time differentiate the true from the false. So this malady is so intense and kicking my butt so bad that if I'm not treating it properly, I can only sit in it so long, and then the insane thought comes that I know what to do. I'm going to put some alcohol and drugs in my body. And I'm insane around it because I know that it's injurious. I have all this history of being on this cycle. I know all the consequences that drinking and using has caused in my life. How many times have I emerged remorseful, making firm resolutions never to drink again, that turn into a broken promise because I can't sit in this malady. No one ever showed me that. I never knew any of this. I was clueless why I kept continuing to drink. Right? So it says, back to the bottom of the doctor's opinion, it says, you can't even tell the difference between the true and the false. You're going to believe a lie because you're coming apart at the seams, and you go back to what you don't want to do. This is crazy, right? It says, to them, their alcoholic life seems the only normal one. When there's no other answer. We know it's injurious. We know it causes problems. We've sworn it off 100 times. We know we're going to get burned by it. But yet we can't tell the difference between, oh yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said I wasn't going to go back to. You know? In other situations in life, we would never be this silly. That's why it's a form of insanity, right? It doesn't make sense, right? We'll talk more about that in a little bit if we get to it. So it says, they are what? Restless, irritable, and discontented. The RADs. Internally, I'm restless, irritable, and discontented. I'm coming apart at the seams inside. I drink over what's going on internally. I always thought I was drinking on what was going on out here in the outside issues of life. You know, I've been wrong. What's her name left me. My friends turned on me. The guy I sold drugs with burned me for some money. I ended up homeless. It's like, man, you know, whatever outside issues. Oh, this happened to me when I was a kid. You know, all that stuff I thought. And then I thought if I could just situate my life externally, I'm going to move, I'm going to get the loan, get the car, I'm going to get a new girlfriend, I'm going to have a kid, and I'm going to be okay. But I took this internal condition everywhere I went. And if I'm not treating it, my sick mind brings me back to drinking and using. And then I face more consequences. So I'm restless, irritable, and discontented, right? Unless what? Unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by taking a few drinks. So I'm going nuts, right? and I'm trying to stay away, and and I just, my sick mind, I sit in that long enough, in the spirituality long enough, I give in to the false, the lie, and I go and treat that spirituality the way I know how to treat it. And then what do I get? That sense of ease and comfort. What are you getting ease and comfort from? From the spirituality. You see that? This is priceless. And when I was shown this, light bulb went off, maybe not the first time, but shortly after I kept, someone took the time to point this out, and the light bulb went out. And I said, oh man, so that's my problem. So it says this. Now remember, picking up where I left off, drinks which they see others taking with impunity. So, time could go by, the malady's kicking our butt, we're not treating it properly, we're trying to stay away from drugs and alcohol, and we're just kind of coming apart at the seams, life's happening, we're doing our best to stay away, and at the same time, our minds can play tricks on us because we see other people having drinks with impunity, which means they don't have these consequences that we get. Once we start drinking and using, we seem to have these consequences in our lives that are really bad. And these other people seem to just hold it together, wake up, go to work, hold their family, keep their job, right? We see other people having these drinks with impunity. So what is that? We have to take a close look at that. There's a very important in understanding your problem, if you are a real alcoholic, that you might not be like these other people. Here's a very important factor of all this. You just might not be like them. Okay? You got to remember that. It doesn't matter if they're able to have a few drinks and not face the consequences that we face and go to the ball game. But you may be in this category of people that are not able to have drinks like that. Okay? And we'll break that down more as we go on. It says, now, you're watching other people have it, time's going by, the malady's kicking your butt, this mental obsession is just hounding you like nobody's business, right? The lie's coming in, this time it'll be different, like, man, I need something to take the edge off, I see other people's drinking, all this stuff's going on. It says what? After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do. You give in to the desire like so many do. You're sitting there trying, you're coming apart at the seams. We may not even understand exactly what's going on internally. This is why people are so baffled by why do people continue to drink. Family members that don't understand alcoholism and don't understand what's going on, they are baffled by us. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you go back and drink and use? And then what happens when you go back and drink and use? Consequences. But you already knew that. We have to remind ourselves and stay in fit spiritual condition and do the things that are suggested that we do for the spiritual walk, because if we let up, we get sick again. And we actually entertain that false lie that somehow drinking and using is gonna be a good choice. Right? and the sad thing is we don't even have a choice in it if we get that sick. Okay, so they give into the desire, as so many do, and then what? And then the phenomenon of craving develops. Okay? The phenomenon of craving. This body piece that separates us from a normal person. Do you know why some people can have drinks, a few drinks, with impunity, meaning not suffering the consequences, and all the stuff that we suffer as real alcoholics? Because they don't have this going on in them. We're not like them. They're not like us. So when we drink, this thing called the phenomenon of craving develops in us. It's the way we are genetically wired, and this don't happen in a normal person's body. It's the same thing. They're going to call it a physical allergy. It's the same thing with you being allergic to peanuts, and I'm not allergic to peanuts. We wouldn't be the same in that. You eat peanuts, the way your body breaks it down, sends you over the top. You have to get rushed into the ER. But I can eat peanuts all day long with impunity. I can have 2 Reese's Pieces cups or 4 with impunity. I'm not suffering the consequences that you suffer if you're allergic to peanuts. You have to understand this. This is what separates us, a real alcoholic addict, from a normal, moderate drinker or hard drinker. If you don't understand this piece, you're not understanding the problem. It's like, why nobody would continue to go and eat peanuts when you know you're allergic to them. You know there's going to be a reaction that you're going to face consequences in your life, similar to drinking and using. So we have to understand the problem, what's going on. So it says, this phenomenon of craving develops, and what? Then they pass through the well-known stages of a spree. Here we are. And then we face whatever truth and consequences we face. And hopefully by the grace of God, we're able to what? Emerge remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. So, got burned again. Went right back and got burned again. So by God's grace, I'm able to emerge remorseful. I'm still alive. I get another chance. And I'm making a firm resolution to never drink and use again. But what does it say? The insanity of it is this. This is repeated over and over, and unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope of his recovery. So we'll just keep doing this over and over and over again, making all these firm resolutions that eventually turn into broken promises, because if we don't treat this spiritual malady, and if we don't stay in the 3 parts of recovery that help our mind stay properly perspective and healthy, and our body, we're not going to put something in our body that we're going to have this allergic reaction to, like we would if we were allergic to peanuts. Why would we keep putting alcohol and drugs in our body? But our sick mind keeps telling us it's a good idea. Why? Because we're sitting in this malady and we're coming apart at the seams. And all we did was remove the only thing we've ever known to treat the spiritual malady, which is the drugs and alcohol. We removed them and we didn't replace it with the solution. Okay? So, and that'll be repeated over and over and over until we can have a spiritual awakening, right? Okay, so we know that alcohol is not our problem, but alcoholism is the problem, okay? And alcoholism is this. Alcoholism is about choice and control. That's what it's about. It's about choice and control. You might just be a moderate drinker or a hard drinker, and you're able to eventually stop without God's help, without this spiritual path of action, and that's amazing. You know? But if you're a real alcoholic, real addict, you will no consequence you'll never be able to stop on your own power. And my life proved that to me. So we got to understand the choice and the control to understand alcoholism. Okay? Because we have to be qualified as that real alcoholic. So we know once you're qualified as the real alcoholic and you realize the state you're in where you have absolutely no hope to pull out of this on your own, and the matter of fact is that you don't even have a choice whether to keep using and drinking or not, and you put it in even though you're going to react weird to it and have all these consequences and then just be stuck on this cycle, that has to be clear to you. Because once that's clear, you'll be willing to do whatever it takes. And there's a clear path that will absolutely 100% guarantee that you never relapse. But if you know the consequence of not following that path, then you'll have the desperation to never let up. That's what it boils down to, the desperation. Do you want to play with this thing? When you know it's going to not end well, it's going to end in your misery, in jail, or death. And there's only one path, if you're that real alcoholic addict, that will guarantee you never go back on this cycle, right? So you got to understand the situation you're in is what I'm trying to get out there through the big book. Because this thing's rooted in the mind, okay? on page 22 out of the big book. Page 22 out of the big book. I'll find it with you to see exactly where it is, because this is the powerful information that's going to change a real alcoholic addict's life, and the only thing I know of that'll do it, and the only reason it works the way it does because it's from the Bible. So don't forget that. Okay, 22, it says this. Halfway down the page, we're sitting here trying to figure out what's wrong with us. We're trying to make a clear picture of what a real alcoholic addict is up against. Halfway down the page, it says it's hundreds of experiences. Do you see that? Okay. If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attended suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? So, taking one drink, putting one drug in our body, and we know from history, our past history, that by doing that, something, we can't handle it like other people, clearly. We go on sprees, and we face consequences in our lives, and maybe we get to emerge remorseful. We've been stuck on this cycle for so long, and the drugs and alcohol are not the solution for us anymore. We're facing way too many consequences when we put that stuff in our body. So after being removed from it, say we went to detox, or we moved, or we got out of jail, or we went to treatment, why would we ever go back to something that we know is so detrimental to us, right? The intended suffering and humiliation that comes from taking that drink or drug. We have to understand what we're up against and the predicament that we're in if we are that real alcoholic addict. This is insanity. This is a form of insanity, right? Let's read some more on page 23. Page 23. Top of the page. Now, check this out. Here's a picture of that insanity, some more, that hopefully you can relate to. And ask yourself, is this you? Because if it is you, you're going to understand, step one, that you are powerless to get out of this. And your life's unmanageable on your own. And that you're going to need God. And you will do whatever it takes, because the alternative is basically death. But you have to understand this. Check this out. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink. Here we are again. Why put it back in your body? You've already had too many consequences. Humiliation. The loss of everything good. And yet we're going to put another drink or drug back in our body? It says, because if you never took that first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion, you won't be on the cycle again if you don't take that first drink or first drug. But we can't seem to do that. We need to understand why. Okay? Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have certain plausibility, right? Some of your excuses or my excuses could kind of make sense. You know, why would you, after all the humiliation, all the consequences, all the suffering that your drinking and using has caused, why would you ever put it back in your body? And sometimes we can come up with a pretty good reason. Oh, bro, I mean, you don't understand, man. Like, I was done so wrong at my last treatment facility. I found out my wife was cheating on me, and like who wouldn't? Like, my wife died. You know, certain these plausibilities you can kind of consider and say, well, you might have a point there, right? That's what it's saying. It says, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. The best excuse, when you think about what's going to come after that first drink or drug and the consequences and the destruction of everything good in your life, even the most plausible excuse in the light of what's coming still doesn't make sense, right? It says, they sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer. This is one example of how crazy our thinking is. That somehow drinking, no matter what's going on in your life, because we already know all the humiliation and all the destruction that one drink or one drug brings, the loss of everything. This is the same way of trying to justify that is what? Like having the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Yeah, we're very sensitive, we're defensive, we're in denial about our situation, but we are absolutely insane around this drinking and using. We need to understand what's going on. I'm going to at least finish the mind piece, and then next week we'll pick up where we left off. So, a few more portions out of the big book on understanding the mind, the chronic mind of an alcoholic. If this is you, you're going to want to pay attention. You're going to want to know the desperate situation you're in and how much you should be seeking the solution. Because without the solution, which is God, you will not ever get off this cycle. A couple more portions. Page 34. If you're not convinced yet, and there's more portions than I'm going to read. But if you're not convinced yet, let's go to 34. Page 34, let's see if this is you. It starts, for those who are unable to drink. Okay? Halfway down the page, the beginning of that paragraph. Here's some more. See if this relates. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. If you can't drink responsibly and normally and hold it together, we're going to have to figure out how to stop altogether. It's going to say it. Watch the next line. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. That's a big one. We're assuming that you want to stop for good and for all. That's a big assumption, and we need to clear that one up. Okay, good. Now, what about this? Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis, okay, whether or not you can quit without God's help, is what it's saying, depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. If you're in this class of real alcoholic, you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic, you can't choose on your own power whether you're going to drink or not. You have no choice whether you're going to drink or not. And a normal person, a family member, whoever in the church, they don't have a clue about this. They can't even wrap their mind around a person not even having a choice whether they're going to drink or not. This is spiritual, and this is rooted in the mind, and this is not going to be solved without God. Now, I had to wrap my mind around this information. It was hard for me as an alcoholic addict to believe. But I know it to be true now. So it says this, that's whether or not they can quit on a non-spiritual basis depends on if they've lost the power to choose whether they're going to drink or not. Do you understand what that means? Dude, what kind of predicament are we in, stuck on the cycle where you don't even have a choice? You take your focus off God, you get out of the 3 parts of the spiritual walk, you're not treating these 3 parts, you let up on your laurel, you don't enlarge your spiritual life on a daily basis, and you will get sick again, and your chronic alcoholic insane mind will say it's okay to drink and use. And you will lose the choice in it. Crazy, okay? Now it says, follow me a couple lines down. It says, this is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism. You will not be able to leave it alone. You will not be able to stop drinking no matter how bad you want to, no matter how much you need to. You can wish it. You can be ready to lose everything, even death, and you will not stop drinking or using. That's crazy. Okay? How much time have we gone so far? 5 over. Okay. All right. So, I could read page 24, which talks about how we don't even bring to our remembering, our consciousness. We cannot remember a week or a month or a year ago the consequences of what happens when we put that alcohol and drug in our body. This is crazy. This is a form of insanity. Like, it's talking about, like, we're another analogy, like we wouldn't continue to put our face on a hot stove. We know that that hot stove has burnt us before. We know what's going to happen when we put our hand or our face on that hot stove. And yet, in the same way with putting alcohol and drugs in our body, there's a mental lapse, weird, unexplainable, just insanity that we would go back to the drugs and alcohol when we wouldn't go and place our face once again on the hot stove. We wouldn't do that. We wouldn't keep doing that. We know what's going to happen. If you put the drugs and alcohol in your body, you're going to be set off on this cycle and you're going to face the consequences. Okay? The last little part of the mind is you got to understand for yourself if this is you. I believe this is me. It says, I am insane around continuing to drink. I have a sick alcoholic mind, a mental twist that I can't shake. I have this great obsession. Here's my great obsession I keep going back to, is this. That regardless of my past history, that some way, this time, when I drink, I will somehow be able to enjoy it and control it like I see other people doing. This obsession that I know it's never worked out like this. I have all these examples of my consequences. But this time, I'm going to drink that brand. I'm going to stay away from her. You know her? I ain't going over to her house. She calls the cops on me. I'm going to stay away from her. I'm going to drink only good IPA. I'm going to not drive. This time it's going to be different. And I fall for the lie. I put it in my body. And I find once again, I do not have that control that I lied to myself about that I was going to have this time. That's my great obsession. And if I don't stay spiritually fit and in the 3 parts, I could be pretty well, you know, I could be doing really good for a time. You know, I'm doing what I need to do. I'm staying on the spiritual path. You know, all the suggestions I'm following. As soon as I let up, justify why I can let up, guess what happens? A little time goes by and I get sick again. I can't sit in the malady. I'm coming apart at the seams. I'm anxious and depressed and just irritable. I'm just restless, man. I'm discontented. I'm not really thankful. I'm not happy with anything. You know? And then that thought, if I put some alcohol and smoke a joint, I'll enjoy that. And I'll be okay this time. I'm not going to fall off the rail completely this time. And boom, I'm back. So we only got through the mind piece. And next week we'll pick up at the body piece and try to understand what alcoholism is. Okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.